Okay, all right. I know this is a tough slot because I think I'm the one sitting between you guys and the lunch, so hopefully I can get you all out in the next 30 minutes. So as Irina, thank you for the introduction. Just another note to add, I've been in the healthcare space the last 8 years. I was at a previous startup called Rally Health, which eventually got acquired by United Health. And then the last 2 years, I've been at Transcarent, and that's where I've been in the CTO role. So today's topic is, it's pretty compelling. Hopefully you guys find it, which is how we can leverage AI to deliver telehealth at Transcarent. In general, AI has many applications when we think about healthcare, and we are actually using it. But this topic is specifically focused on an experience which we call telehealth and how we are really leveraging AI capabilities there. So in terms of the flow of the topic, so first, I want to spend just a few moments to set the broader context about healthcare, because I think the context, once we all understand the baseline, then it's all how we apply it, how we apply technology in general and AI, it will become more easier to follow along. The second part is obviously going to be the meat of the topics, which is we get into more implementation, technical details of how we are leveraging actually AI in our telehealth experience. There's going to be two sides of that section. One is, in some sense, the past and the present. And then there is the post-generative AI, GPT world, and how that's kind of transformed the experience as we think about it today and how it's going to shape the future. And then finally, to round out the conversation, some key learnings, and then looking forward to some Q&A, the Q&A session too. So, okay, just a quick plug about Transcarent. Transcarent is a startup, so I'm not going to assume everyone knows what Transcarent is all about, but we've been around the last 3 to 4 years. Transcarent is a digital health tech company, and our vision is really to create the one place to manage health and care. So as you go through the different pillars, on one side, we're looking to bring in experiences which we call everyday care. So telehealth would be part of it, or just running through a symptom checker or behavioral health, like things that we could need any moment, but pretty frequently. And all the way on the other side of the spectrum is what one would call complex care, so things like dealing with cancer care and surgeries and all those kind of things. So what Transcarent is really trying to do is bring all these diverse set of experiences in one place. And to be honest, like that's still a problem statement that still hasn't been solved up until now. So that's a challenge that Transcarent is really trying to solve. How can we bring these diverse set of experiences into one place and create a truly integrated and seamless experience? So that's really the problem statement we're trying to solve. Having said that, telehealth or virtual care, different terms that are used, is really the focus area and one part of our experience amongst these diverse set of experiences. Okay, quick slide on just to set the context again about the healthcare industry, right? So healthcare as we know it, it's almost in excess of 20% of our GDP here in the US. So on an annual basis, we are spending close to $5 trillion. That's 5 trillion or $5,000 billion on healthcare. And the fact of the matter is the growth of our spend is higher than inflation. Over the next, let's call it 7, 8 years, that spend is almost going to double to getting closer in excess of $7 trillion. So that's what we are dealing here when we think about the healthcare system here in the US. Having said that, here's the bummer, that we spend so much money, but when we rank the different countries on the measure of quality and access of care, we are way at the bottom, or rather the last position amongst the developed countries. So we are spending $5 trillion, and we're not really getting any, or not anything, but like really the access and the quality just doesn't exist. So that's the state of affairs at this moment. And then finally, another aspect of healthcare is like we are dealing with a supply and demand imbalance where we don't have as many providers or high quality doctors that are available or meeting the demands that exist. So if you think about getting a doctor visit, again, this is an area we all have personal experiences. Getting a visit, it's a long wait time, essentially. So there's that aspect to it where there's a supply and demand imbalance also. So in a nutshell, we're dealing with high cost of care, still not getting the right quality that we expect, and then there's a supply-demand imbalance. So this is where we think about AI and how it can truly impact the healthcare industry. So AI, as we think about AI solutions, it's really about operating machines at scale that can really do a lot of the tasks that humans don't have to do. And if you're really successful in delivering the AI solutions that healthcare industry can really leverage, then we can think about reducing the cost of care. The unit economics should go down, so hopefully the costs go down. High quality care, like this could be, again, through AI solutions also, as well as physicians and providers really focusing on complex areas and not having to deal with the regular mundane tasks that otherwise they have to do. And then finally, empowering our clinicians, that's another aspect to it, where they can use the AI technology to really become an assistant to them in delivering high quality care. So that's really the context around how we should think about the healthcare industry overall, where it stands right now, and then how we can leverage AI technologies to really solve these problems. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the topic, which is thinking about the telehealth visit. So just a quick show of hands, like how many here have really used telehealth or virtual care in the last few years? Cool. So that's encouraging to hear, because if anything, one of the things that happened because of COVID is that we all realized that we can actually seek care, healthcare, online as well. I think that was a kind of a mind shift or a barrier that many people didn't cross until COVID came along, and we all tried or got basically a chance to experience it. Hopefully that's an experience that while COVID kind of dictated the need, that's something that you experience and will look forward to into the future. So telehealth visit, if you think about it, it's all about, like, you need to break it down into different sections. So first is obviously a patient comes along, and this is how we have implemented it. Not all telehealth visits are alike. You can, one common modality is you just come in and you start a virtual visit and start talking to a doctor, kind of mirroring an in-person experience. But at Transcarent, what we do is when the patient comes in, we actually initiate an AI or a chatbot interaction with the patient. So this is really the phase where the patient comes in, and we are trying to kind of do a Q&A session to understand why they're here for the visit, trying to kind of gain some understanding of like what's really the symptom or what they're dealing with. And really it's a process of like trying to triage the problem statement to a point where we have some understanding of why the person is visiting or initiating the telehealth visit. And this is the phase where the doctor isn't involved yet. So we really are leveraging the AI bot to kind of go past the initial kind of screening and triaging process. Once that process is done, that's when the actual physician or the doctor joins the visit and really takes over the experience. And at this point, the doctor can kind of look at the notes and all the conversations that have happened. And if the AI bot does its work where it's able to truly diagnose the condition, then it should be probably a straightforward visit where the doctor can kind of confirm the diagnosis and the treatment plan and work with the patient to kind of complete the visit so that all the information is shared with the patient, they know what the diagnosis is, and what the next steps are. And then post-visit, there's the documentation phase. You have to kind of document all the aspects of the visit, and so there is a system of record for the visit that happens. So I note this as something past and present because this is the current state of affairs when it comes to how the telehealth visit is operating generally in the industry and at Transcarent right now. So again, the AI bot initiates the visit, runs through the initial Q&A session, and then the physician comes in and then completes the visit. So that's the current state of affairs. So what I'm going to focus on is the initial phase where the Q&A session and how the AI bot is smart and working with the patient essentially, and how we build the system. By the way, quick note on the telehealth experience, the technology that I'm talking about right now, we own this right now at Transcarent, but it did come in through an acquisition. We acquired a company called 98.6. So this was originally built at a different company, which has been around for the last 6-7 years. So, okay, so when it comes to the initial phase, what I call interview and diagnosis, really what it comes down to is like, how did we really build this AI bot? And it starts with obviously data collection and the training framework. So if you think about it, the visit essentially, what's happening there is like there's a bunch of questions that you want to kind of ask the person who's coming in. It starts with what we call a chief complaint, where the first person just comes in and kind of lays out their why they're here for the visit. So based on all the information or let's say a sentence or a statement the person makes, we basically have to kind of figure out what's the line of questioning we want to proceed further so that we start to get to the root of like what the eventual diagnosis could be. So there's a lot of data set, like when we think about the data sources, we are thinking about the past chat conversations that we have acquired or have had over the last 6-7 years, how we can really use that data to kind of build this deep learning model. There's obviously other aspects of the data set in terms of the individuals. So no two individuals is alike. There is an element of a person's age, their gender, their past medical history, which needs to be taken into account as we try to kind of triage and figure out how the questions are basically going to be asked to the patient. So all that information, the chat history, some other medical journals. The other aspect here is that the physicians, like they can also annotate the interaction, like both post-visit and during the visit, where they can kind of set the priorities for the questions that get asked. So in some sense, we can have a shadowing session where while the AI bot is kind of leading the session, the physicians or some of them can actually shadow the process and kind of influence whether the right set of questions are being asked and how the session needs to proceed. So all that data is really valuable for us to kind of build the model, which then basically drives the whole experience. So if we think about like besides the training process, so really what the interview is happening, if you think about the model, is the input is really the chief complaint, really the first statement or the problem statement that the person presents. Then, as I said, there's some aspects of the individual themselves, whether that's their age, gender, medical history. All that information is an input that goes into this model. And then we have this. So another aspect is, as we're thinking about generative AI, the conversation can go in any direction depending on the patient or the member and what kind of interaction they need to have. But when it comes to healthcare, we need to have a certain structure. We can't let the conversation kind of go off and like in some direction which doesn't make sense. So that's where we maintain actually a curated question bank. So it's not like the conversation is built on, or the questions get asked out of like infinite set of questions. There is a curated question bank which kind of dictates what are the next set of, so it's a finite set of questions that actually get asked to the patient. And all along what's happening here with the model is, one, it's trying to figure out the next best question to ask to the patient. And then at the same time, it's trying to triage towards the final diagnosis that would be a recommendation to the physician. So really two outputs coming out of this interaction is what's the next set of questions to ask, and then trying to kind of get to that high confidence level of what the diagnosis should be. So I have a quick screenshot on the right, as you can, or yeah, on my right or left, where when you see a sample interaction, like someone has come in, they basically say like they have a skin rash on their arm, and then you can see like some next kind of questions that are being asked over here, where it says like, does it hurt, when did it start, and so on. And obviously, as you can see, those questions are contextual to this condition, which is the rash. If someone were to come in with a flu or something, it's obviously going to be a different set of questions that get asked. Okay, so in terms of results and where we are at this point in time, what we have seen at Transcarent and with our telehealth experience is that after the interview is completed by the chatbot, when it comes to the diagnosis, because that's really the outcome you want to get to, like the 86% of the time, the physicians end up choosing a diagnosis that the AI bot recommends. So again, like just to be clear, when the AI bot, it's going to make multiple recommendations. It's not going to be like, okay, this is it, but there's a measure for that as well. But it's going to be a list, let's say 4 or 5. So when the AI bot makes that recommendation, we found typically the physicians, they agree with 1 out of those top 5 to 10 diagnoses 86% of the time. So that's one measure or level of accuracy we have accomplished. The other way to look at this is that we actually, when we think about some of the common conditions, so think about like flu, UTI, respiratory infection, all those, some of the very common conditions, the level of accuracy is in excess of 90%, like it's high 90s as well in some of those cases. And when we look at the volumes of the visit, 50% of those visits tend to fall in those common conditions. So in one sense, like we are at that stage where half the volume of the visits in some sense, are like most of the legwork has already been done by the AI bot. Because if you come up with an accurate diagnosis, the rest of the visit tends to be hopefully like much more smoother, much more quicker, and the cognitive load on the physician isn't going to be as high. So that's where the current state of affairs, in some sense, is at this point in time. There's obviously room to improve, so that's where we continue to innovate on it, improve the model, and obviously address more and more conditions. Like we want to obviously get to almost, if not 100%, like let's say 80%, 90% of the conditions, we really want a high degree of accuracy. But having said that, what we have seen in the last 1 year with the introduction of GPT and LLM models and all that stuff is really allowing us now to address the other aspects of the telehealth visit. And what I've highlighted here is the AI bot interview phase, then the physician joining the visit and kind of looking at all the information gathered and confirming the diagnosis and the treatment. But then there's still a lot of stuff still remaining in the visit, which is about like working with the patient to inform them about the diagnosis and the treatment plan. And we feel with the current set of capabilities, we can really have a bot kind of take over that part of the interaction and really finish the visit all the way through the patient and then the post-visit documentation. So if you look at it, like if you were to break it down into 5 different steps that are laid out here, 2 out of 5 were done by AI in the past, and where we are headed into the future is, or are almost there, is 4 out of the 5 steps are actually going to be done by the bot. The intermediate step about like physician and they still need to be plugged in. Like we can't have an AI bot diagnosis. That's a requirement, FDA, that's how the rules are. So a physician has to step into the visit. It's just that how can we truly minimize their kind of impact on the visit. So this is kind of a glimpse into, in some sense, the present and the future as I talk about the next steps here. So where we are at in the last 1 year is that obviously with the advent of generative AI and the LLM models, what we are able to do is now use these large language models and fine-tune them on a different kind of data set. So obviously the chat history is still there, but we are also ingesting what are called plan documents. So if you think about like the visit and some aspects of it, it should really be also tied to what kind of a health plan do you have, what kind of coverage do you have, and so on. And I'll have some examples to kind of to tie in that point with this thing. But again, here's the new model where right now we are actually able to leverage fine-tuned large language models to kind of go through this post-diagnosis interaction with the member and kind of complete the visit. So here's an example. So one of the screenshots, if you see all the way on the right, you can see some example where the diagnosis has been made around a rash condition, but you can think about the patient still wanting more answers. They're like, why is this a rash? Like, what kind is it? If we think about that, we can have, obviously, the AI bot fetch all the, like, from the medical journals and all that information that's really relevant to explain all the diagnosis that has been mentioned. It can even be about the medication where something gets prescribed and they want to know more about the ingredients or the frequency or is there an alternative. So that's one aspect that's really going to be transformed with the LLM capabilities and leveraging it in the telehealth visit. The other aspect is, if you look at on the, I guess, the right side, is where Transcarent is doing something innovative where we are using that health plan information to really make the conversation more personalized. So if you look at the interaction, the person is getting recommended to a dermatologist, and there's a provider and a physician who's actually been referred. And the person or the patient can say like, hey, I don't want to go to that doctor because it seems they're like, 15 miles away. Can I have someone who's closer? So you can see the interaction now suddenly can use more information about their patient health plan to really connect them to a doctor that's going to be in network, let's say, closer to their home, and really like identify the right care provider to kind of follow through on the next steps. So that's really the innovation that's coming in terms of where the telehealth is headed now and into the future. Just the last slide quickly. We all know like AI, it comes with its own challenges. There's still a lot of work to do. It's not an automatic solution. There's no end product state. So especially with healthcare, in general, we need to preach, obviously, responsible AI. We need to watch out for all the things we have seen, the downsides of the AI technology, but especially with healthcare, patient safety is utmost. Like this is talking about someone's health. A wrong decision can really be very bad for a person. It can be a life and death matter, so we have to take that aspect very seriously, which means we are doing a lot of testing, a lot of measurement, a lot of refinement, and most importantly, we have to add the safety checks just to make sure the model is operating and not leading into a direction which can be harmful to our patients. So to close out the talk, top 3 learnings, the takeaways you all should have is, first and foremost, just the whole convergence of 2 huge technologies. Like when you think about the healthcare, there's a lot of digitization that's happening, so it's bringing a lot of the offline data, digitizing it, so it's increasing the access to the data, which can be really leveraged, and then obviously the AI capabilities and tying it together. The second aspect is, as you think about AI and the capabilities in different domains, I think one of the important things is going to be your proprietary data and how you can leverage to make the experience more personalized and unique for your members. Because that's what's really going to differentiate you and your offering compared to any other competitor or other companies that are in your domain. And then finally, obviously, the responsible use of AI, that's going to be extremely important. We have to make sure it's used in a safe manner and doesn't have a negative or a harmful impact. So that's it with my talk. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Time for Q&A, and we have some really great questions. And one of the most asked questions was, how do you address data privacy and security concerns when implementing AI in telehealth?
Yeah, so obviously, there are 2 aspects to this. One is consumer awareness around their data that's being shared and making sure they understand how the data is being used and by us as an employer. So there's that aspect to it. Just being very transparent with the members about the use of their data and how it's enhancing the experience and the product. The other aspect is obviously how we take care of that data. Our head of security is actually here at this talk, but he spends we have all the state-of-the-art tech when it comes to making sure all the data is stored safely with us and we are taking all the care of it. So.
It's great to know the data is in good hands.
Yeah, innovation.
And what are some of the regulations you have to conform to?
Yeah, I mean, high level, anything that happens in healthcare, we have an overarching rules which are called HIPAA. I always forget the acronym, but you can obviously look it up. So that really is the foundation for how we operate as a healthcare company. And we have to conform to all the rules and regulations that are governed by HIPAA and how we basically offer our products and run our products. There are more, to be honest, that are coming as we think about AI space in general, where the federal government is coming up with new rules and regulations across all industries and will be focused on healthcare. So we really are watching out for all those rules and regulations coming about and then making sure we obviously conform to them. But that's an evolving space, and we are really trying to stay on top of it.
Awesome. And what are some performance metrics or benchmarks you use to assess the quality of the service?
I mean, I was alluding to a couple of them. As I said, the accuracy of the diagnoses is extremely important because at the end of the day, it's the bot comes up with an answer, but we do have a physician there to kind of verify whether that outcome was an accurate outcome or not. That's an obvious measure for the telehealth visit. There are other aspects in terms of, let's say, how many questions did you ask? Obviously, we want to minimize there's a basic set of questions you want to ask, but you don't want to ask too many of them. So we want to have that awareness of how many questions get asked till a point where the diagnosis or the Q&A session is complete. So that's kind of a performance metric for us that you want to really optimize it. Obviously, you don't want to ask just a couple of questions because you will obviously miss the diagnoses, but you just want to find that right balance where the visit isn't too long that the person just gets tired of answering. So a bunch of product metrics that we obviously are tracking and want to make sure they meet our benchmarks.
That makes sense. And we have a follow-up question from Tio.
Yeah.
What is the percentage of interactions that go through the bot, and what is the exit rate for the users?
Yeah, so 100% of visits start with the bot. There is no, that's the starting point. Having said that, if we find there is an urgent need or a 911 kind of a situation, we try to recognize that condition early on in the visit and really kind of extract the person outside of the otherwise being a longer Q&A session with the bot and really pull in the physician so they can provide that next step urgently versus obviously going through the complete visit. So in some sense, as I said, like having the right safety checks is extremely important for us. So we do watch out for those kind of conditions where if something could be life-threatening, or so we have those checks in place to get the person out of it. In terms of visits and exit rate, like we have a pretty high completion percentage. Obviously, we're not at 100%, but I would say like we are in excess of 80 to 85% in terms of visit completion. So not just the bot, but like someone initiates the visit and completes the visit with the physician, gets the treatment and all. We are like mid 85%. So it's a pretty significantly high number there.
And if there's like a medical emergency, is there an option to skip the bot?
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, like we find a way. There's a exit route.
Yeah.
But we also have algorithms in place to detect a condition where the person may not know it's a life-threatening situation, and we go through it. And to be honest, like this is again one of those spaces where you really enjoy the work you're doing, because we get to hear cases where I think just a couple of weeks back, we have someone who came in with a behavioral health side of a kind of a visit, which is part of our experience. And we noticed a symptom which kind of led to us to believe that it could be a suicidal kind of a visit that's coming in, or a situation. And then the behavioral health person was immediately able jumping in, called in the right support, like the 911 getting in the person, and we were able to save them from whatever would have otherwise transpired. So that's really, some of those experiences are like what really motivates us to work and drives value or impact of things we are doing.
Yeah, I mean, working in healthcare is very rewarding, I can imagine.
Yeah. Talk about a motivation. Like, in the past I worked with semiconductors or enterprise software. Sometimes it's hard to find that connection or impact. Healthcare, you never have that problem. So.
Yeah, wonderful. I have a great question from JG. I love this solution, but is it really reducing cost of care for patients? If so, are the doctors welcoming to this solution?
I mean, it will take time. I'm not going to just fake stuff. Like the idea is like if we are reducing the time a physician is spending on the visit, hopefully the unit economics will lead us to reduce the cost of a visit. Like telehealth, let's say it costs $100 a visit or whatever it is. There's a reason that if we use more of AI solutions, hopefully we can drive that cost from 100 to 50 or 30 or whatever it is, right? So that's my belief, and I hope like if you're operating this at scale using AI, the unit economics should go down and the cost of care should come down. To your question about doctors welcoming this solution, I mean, again, we have in-house full-time physicians, basically. They're full-time employees at Transcarent. We know they are big proponents of the AI solution. They obviously come in with their own, they're not fully confident and stuff, but they are adopting it. But that doesn't tell us that all the doctors in the world. So you can obviously look at some other articles where doctors are very skeptical. You'll find all the people. So we are clearly not at a stage where everyone is opening their arms to accept it, but it will take time, just as you would imagine anything that's transformative, it takes time for broader adoption. So.
And are the doctors working for Transcarent? Just so I'm clear.
Yeah, they are full-time employees at Transcarent. They're part of our clinic org, so they are full-time. Yeah, they are full-time employees. We have a broader network of other employment status, so we have more scale. But they are full-time employees at Transcarent. So
I think that's an important aspect.
That is because that bridges the gap, like they're on our side in some sense, and they can help us further enhance the solution, be really working closely with us. So we do take that advantage for sure. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Next question, and I think it's the last one.
Sure.
What steps has Transcarent taken to ensure AI-driven telehealth is accessible to a diverse range of patients, including those with varying technical abilities?
Yeah, so first, like in terms of access to Transcarent, like again, one of the things is Transcarent is not a direct-to-consumer application. So that's one of the hurdles. Like again, like as an engineer, we obviously want our experience to be available to everyone in the country or around the world. But we are like a paid kind of a benefit that we sell through employers. So not everyone has access to it. So that does limit access to the capabilities we are building at Transcarent. But again, we are a startup. Hopefully our business model evolves and we can grow that access over a period of time. So clearly not there in terms of on that front. Obviously, the diversity of our patients mirrors the diversity of the employers that we sell to. And I don't have an analysis, to be honest, handy in terms of what's the mix of patients we typically see or members that use a Transcarent, but clearly it may not be as diverse as we would like it to be. In terms of technical ability, so one aspect is accessibility. Like, we take that seriously. That's something coming from my previous experience. So we have an accessible experience from not necessarily day 1, but let's say day 30. So we do make sure, like, if people have obviously disabilities or need accessible, like all our entire experience is accessible. Other technical abilities, like, to be honest, like, so another aspect of Transcarent is we have this concept of health guides. So people have access to directly connect with a health guide who can help facilitate them how to use Transcarent and the online experience, as well as different parts of the experience. So it's not just go to a website and that's your only way to access Transcarent. You can have humans help you, handhold you to get to the right experience as well. So that's how we are kind of solving that aspect.
Gotcha, and I imagine like an audio experience.
Phone, yeah. 1-800 number. We still have that. Like, you still need to have 1-800 number. We don't run fax machines.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we have all modalities just to make sure we are covered on all fronts. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And thank you all for joining the session.
Cool. Thank you, Anya. Thank you for joining.